Whether you are here with us for the very first time today, or whether you've been with us many times, we are in this very moment for the first time. And so let us bring to it great freshness and a great sense of renewal. And it was in that spirit that I wanted to start my words with you today by bringing you some immensely familiar words. One of the most familiar passages in any of the scriptures. And because they're so familiar, I want you to take particular care to bring to them freshness of mind and freshness of vision. So, here we have a man called Paul, who had written a letter to people in a place called Corinth. And perhaps he was also writing to us here today, here in Sydney, and inviting us, most of all, to see, to know, and to act upon what truly matters. So here are these words. If I speak with the languages of people or of angels, but don't have love, I'm nothing but a resounding gong or a clashing cymbal. If I have the gifts of prophecy and comprehend all mysteries and all knowledge, if I have faith sufficient to move mountains, but I do not have love, then I am nothing. If I give away everything that I own, and if I hand my body over so that I may boast but do not have love, I gain nothing. And then, a little later in the same letter, he said, with incredible honesty, when I was a child, I spoke as a child does. I understood as a child and I thought as a child. But when I became an adult, I put away childish things. For now, we see in a mirror dimly, but then we will see face to face. Now I know only in part, but then I shall know just as I too am fully known. So now abide faith, hope, and love, these three. But the greatest of these is love. I was keen, for quite obvious reasons, to speak to you briefly today about ministry. Of course, because we have three women here with us today who are bravely and publicly setting out their diverse expressions of ministry. But I also wanted to speak about it because I wanted you to be provoked to think about what this degree of spiritual commitment means to each of you in your lives, not just in theirs. What does a spiritual commitment call us to, each one of us? How do we minister to ourselves as well as to one another, to the physical and the social worlds that surround us? How will we heed those words of Paul and live more lovingly? Or heed the words of Teilhard de Chardin and live far more joyfully? How will we heal ourselves and cause far less harm? When will we, each of us, pause long enough to ask not only what love is asking of us, but how love is inspiring us? How willing, how eager are we to be inspired by love? The very notion that this is a question only for rabbis, priests, ministers, is very shaky. We all have gifts, and all of our gifts are needed. Yours, mine, ours, all are needed. We are participants in this life of love. We are participants in a life of commitment and of spirit. This is not to deny the particular courage it takes to put your hand up and declare to the world that spirituality is your main game, as someone once put it to me. And I said, yes, it is. I was happy to accept that. Spirituality is my default zone. It's my home, it's my heart, it's what supports me, it's what inspires me, and it's what pushes me constantly, far, far outside my comfort zone. But I'm also really cautious, and I wonder if some of you share my caution about any claim to specialness, other than to say that where people are most open, where they are most trusting, where they are most vulnerable, then we must move to meet them with the greatest sensitivity, with the greatest humility, with the greatest care, and with the greatest love. In fact, I realize that while talking to you today about ministry, I cannot speak for any other interfaith minister present. And how liberating is that? How truthful that is. Because when any one of us, and we can be so tempted to do this, claims to speak authoritatively on behalf of others, we again need to pause. And especially perhaps when they're claiming to read the mind of God and speak on behalf of God. We risk then losing the fruits of the Spirit, which include not just humility, but gentleness, and also real and great consideration for the difference and diversity within our human family. This is something that we can truly celebrate. Otherwise, we risk being sounds of gongs and cymbals. Unity matters. We are working together for unity and love. But within that unity, we can accept the most marvelous, almost incomprehensible range of differences. Speaking only for myself and not on behalf of any interfaith minister or any one of you, speaking only for myself, I want to share with you that almost 15 years ago, when I discovered that there was a heavenly place on earth called an interfaith seminary, I almost wept for joy. I knew that this would not be an easy commitment to ministry, and it is not. Without the certainties of a more conventional path, it is very, very far from easy. I was correct in that. But I also felt, and again I'm only speaking for myself here, that I could not affiliate myself wholeheartedly with any one organization that in any of its moments or branches claimed a kind of superiority of spiritual seeking over other paths. This is not to say that I don't have my preferences. I do. This is not to say that I think we should all be flattened into some kind of sameness. I do not. This is not to say that I think all religions serve humankind equally well. I don't think so. I don't think so. But what I do mean is that while I profoundly respect any ministry, call it lay ministry, call it ordained ministry, just call it service to our human family, any call to service that has love at its heart and as its primary and defining practice is the path that I can call mine, and not only mine, I can call it ours without exception. This is a clumsy, inexpert, tenuous, tentative path. But we have love to guide us. We can ask incredibly simple questions like, does this belief heal us? Does this action harm anyone including myself? Does this choice bring us closer, or does it divide us? Is there some simplicity here? Is there some clarity here? And perhaps most of all, which of these beliefs, which of these attitudes, which of these thoughts and prayers and teachings are bringing me to a greater sense of my own fullness and a greater respect for your fullness? Where am I feeling my contentment, even my gratitude, my appreciation, my unbounded appreciation for this gift of life, so that I can bow with a full heart to the gift of life that is yours? But I am also aware that we as a human family have an incredibly seductive, alluring capacity to elevate our own beliefs and experiences above other people's. This is a human talent that many of us have developed to a very high degree. So, I also want to add, this interfaith, interspiritual path should never, in my view, be seen as better than, more advanced than, more progressive than, more inclusive than, more wonderful even than any other path. For some people, it is a path that combines exquisitely with their faith tradition. For some people, it offers a new path of freshness and possibility and companionship and hope. But we must always remember that this path of love is utterly dependent on the wisdom of millennia, on countless souls who have walked the path of love before us, who have articulated it in prayer, in scriptures, in gospels, in songs, in acts of love and acts of forgiveness. We walk securely, not in the footsteps of hundreds of thousands, but of infinite millions of heart-filled seekers. I want to finish by circling back to the early Christian apostle again, Paul, reminding you that every letter he wrote was a letter of unconditional encouragement. I love that. I hope that it is the hallmark also of all that I have done in my ministry too, through my books, through writing, through talks, through teaching, through the ministry here at Pitt Street. And perhaps in the end, that is all ministry is. Encouragement to one another to do and to be the very best, the most loving, the most humble, the most healing that we can be. I love the words of Father Lawrence Freeman, a contemporary priest who now heads the World Community for Christian Meditation. He says, the essential work of a spiritual teacher, and he means in our time, in our marvelous 21st century time, when we have the richness of traditions pouring towards us from the north, from the south, from the east, and from the west. He says the essential work of a spiritual teacher is just this, not to tell us what to do, but to help us to see who we are. Blessed be.